Hello, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, everybody. This is Jared Kubika Miller. We are DebateSensei. I am a debate coach and professor of communications. This is Tim Seavey, Bizolutions, and assistant to the director of forensics. And then there is Matthew Shapiro, Esquire. There you go, man. Yeah. It is us again. We're talking about stuff. Now, we go back and forth between stuff that is, more advanced and sometimes stuff that's a little bit more novice. And today's a little bit more novice. We're kind of talking about the fear of debate. And we want to explore many different facets. I think it would make the most sense to talk about. Do you think that there is a special, different type of fear of debate more than just public speaking? Have you ever experienced it? What would you say?
I want to.
No, for sure.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, no one is going to tell you that you're wrong when you're just giving a speech. Like, even in the worst case, maybe you are graded for a particular speech, but no one is going to actively pick apart your words and disagree with you and tell everyone else listening why you're wrong outside of the debate space. So I think there's like really a unique concern that comes with that.
And Jared, I mean, I'll disagree with you right off the bat. I don't think the fear ever goes away. And I think to this day, me personally, I feel tension. I feel uneasy, whatever the word is. I feel pressure. But like what I've come to realize, this is my fundamental, theme through the night, I think, will be like, wherever there's an opportunity to mess something up really bad is also typically a place where you have an opportunity to do something really good. And I think, always just focus the trick, the mental game that you play in my mind is you convince yourself that don't look at the aspect where you could fail. Focus on the opportunity to do well and how all you really want to do is a good job. And it's funny how it's all a mind game. Okay. To this whole day is talking about mind games, but that's kind of my premise is look at it as an opportunity to do what you came here to do and you have fun doing. So focus on those. How about you guys? I mean, you understand kind of what I'm saying?
But yeah, I think people kind of assume that like everyone else, I guess there is a weird dynamic when you have somebody that's participating in the exercise of debate and their role is to listen to you and just believe that you're wrong. You know what I mean? It's like, know that there's somebody listening to you that is kind of, trying to find a way that
you're not going to convince them of anything. Yeah.
Right.
That's always a novice mistake that people make is that they think that they're trying to convince their opponent to switch sides. You know what I mean? Or like if they don't switch sides themselves, then they're winning. It's funny how novice debaters think it's about convincing their opponent when it's about convincing the judge.
Yourself, almost. That's what today's almost about. Like you have to just focus on like, you're going to go in there, and this is like a Bill Belichick. He's a football reference just for all these people out there who may know about football. Like, just do your job. Like, when you think of debate, that's kind of, they tell, just focus on the things you can control and, like, try not to, like, that's it. That's kind of the key. And if you can do those things adequately, not great. If you can even just focus on doing them at all, then you're really ahead of the curve in my mind. And, like, that focus on what you can do step by step, and it does require a lot of kind of flexibility in your mind because you're thinking about so much at once. But one aspect is just, focus on what you can, because obviously there's like this human feeling of fear and that won't necessarily go away. I like it. It's exciting.
I know what you say. Like, I feel it. I feel that way sometimes also, but I also realize that there are a lot of times where I'm just debating and I don't feel anything. I'm not nervous about it. I don't realize how
that comes with repetition.
I'm making the other person. I'm just frustrating the hell out of the other person. I'm like, oh man, you got to learn how to turn it off, man. Right. So that's one of the drawbacks on if you actually get a handle on the fear of debate, that you might like start doing it like unconsciously and just annoying people.
Autopilot, like this comatose state where you're like, I just feel comfortable reading this piece of paper in front of people, and I don't really it doesn't. Yeah, like I don't know, Tim. Like, what do you have any experiences, for instance, of like when you felt it maybe more than others? And I mean, I don't know.
Never.
Right?
So, no, I wanted to ask you guys. So I'll answer this bit first, but I want to ask you guys what you tell students before their first round, or if like anyone gave you cool bits of advice like before your first round, like you're just getting going. I think it's probably for most people scarier when you first start, and then it just gets easier. Like anything, it just gets easier over time. So part of it is just like you're not going to die. They're not going to eat you. Worst case, you make an idiot of yourself, as you will, because there's no way if you debate long enough and well enough and against good enough teams that you won't make an idiot of yourself at some point. So just roll it, right? Like keep going.
I got one joke.
You won't look like an idiot. You'll look smart eventually, hopefully. So just keep.
I'll tell you a joke that I tell the students. Okay, here's a joke I tell the students. I said there's these two people out in the woods. They're camping, and all of a sudden a bear just pops out of nowhere and starts chasing them. They start darting the opposite direction, running right next to each other. One of them turns to the other, says, "Oh my God, we have to outrun this bear." And the other one turns back, and says, "No, I just have to outrun you." And the reason I tell them that joke. Yeah, the reason I tell them that joke is because everyone thinks that you have to be like the smartest person that ever the judge has ever seen. No, you just got to be somewhat smarter than this person next to you. You know what I mean? It's like that's it. That's your standard. And like the way debate is formatted and the people they pair you with, they're not going to have that drastic a difference. Okay, and any difference that there is, even if it's like measurable, like. It's not that big a difference. Debaters exaggerate that in their head. They think there's this giant difference between their intelligence, and it's not that different at all.
It's funny because like being like cool, calm, and collected, and just delivering your words. Like honestly, we're talking about just doing a good job. Like you just did a good job. You just got up there. You said what you had to say. You knew what you were saying. When you had a question, you answered it. Maybe you misread a word and you said, "Excuse me," once, but no, that's okay. Like
even the best debaters, they only win 70 to 80%.
My point is
the best debaters, the best debaters, you know what I mean? It's like those are just phenomenal.
I truly believe there's no perfect argument, right? Like everything is about doing as good as you can, or like just doing good and then trying to maximize how good you can do, right? And practice. One of the things we can all agree on, I think, is that like Jared's talking about how, when you've been competing, over and over and over, you're very comfortable up there, right? Like, so no, for all of you, maybe very new people, like, that is true. Like the more you do it, especially in a tournament, you go back to back to back. Like by the third one, you're pretty comfortable compared to the first one. So just like experience is big, and these two are very experienced debaters. I had some experience myself, but like we just never like forget, like it's a part of it. In my mind, it's a part of it, and you have to kind of just get comfortable in that space of. It's like getting on a roller coaster,
But like, what about when you're not there yet, though, right? So students don't have a whole bunch of experience under their belt,
right?
And they're scared to hell to do it, and you tell them like, "Oh, well, just do it a whole ton." Like, in the moment, right?
Well, even this video stuff, if you record yourself, you'll see everything someone sees. Like you'll pick yourself apart harder than anyone else, likely.
I think people don't take advantage of just going and watching like debates beforehand enough. You know what I mean? It's like just watch them. And don't go to the open rounds. Your first one, go to the novice rounds. You're like more than likely you're going to watch it and say, I can do this.
Oh yeah,
I can. You know what I mean? It's like you like if you see what's going on.
The bar is pretty low. Something like that. That's bad. I'm just kidding out there, but like honestly, like
tactical people, right? Like going into the beginning, right? So the first debate that you're ever going into, I think, can be the same as the final round of nationals or senior year that you're going into. You can have something of a routine. I don't know if you did this necessarily, but having just like a process, knowing that you can go through these same things, that's one way to just sort of calm nerves, right? So like, I'm going to set up my flow. I'm going to get all my pens and whatever, set up my computer. I'm going to get sticky notes out, like having that routine process. But also, I don't know if you've ever seen, it's the really popular TED Talk with Amy Cuddy about postural power. So that's one that I think is a regularly issued thing in public speaking classes that's super useful in a practical way. So the idea is this, that if you are standing and holding yourself and physically putting yourself in a position of power, of confidence, of being big, the actual hormones in your body adjust to that. So confidence is not just something that's purely in your head. I mean, it's hormones that drive that. So the way that you hold yourself will actually make yourself feel more confident. Similarly, the reverse works. So more progesterone, more fear hormones and things come in, the more small you make yourself, the more nervous, the more you're kind of like hunched over and things. So the recommendation is to be big, stand tall, big, deep breaths. Those things really do actually help. I know that like part of vocal warm-ups oftentimes, like taking deep breaths to super oxygenate your blood, your synapses fire better in an alkaline environment. Like there's all kinds of advantages, just little things you can do like that.
I'll faking it until you make it. Go.
Totally.
Yeah.
So another aspect of what Tim's saying is like, you get prepared, right? You bring your pens and pencils. That was kind of not exactly, you said a whole lot, but that was kind of the beginning where it's like, you can control so much. Okay. But you also need to realize what you can and cannot control. And you can control like your arguments if you can understand them, with some degree of accuracy to where like, and we talk about on this all the time where like anticipate questions. What you like, if you were going against yourself, if you knew your plan and someone else ran it, what questions would you ask them? Like ask yourself those questions, and like you can actually prepare yourself before the round theoretically for the hardest questions that you're worried about, and like hopefully they never even get there, and if they do, you're somewhat prepared. Because like another thing is just kind of like focus on like this is scary. This is probably the scariest thing that we're going to say all here tonight, but like, you have to trust that you have to trust yourself, right? You have to be like, I know myself, and I, in the last, if you've never done it before, I promise you can do it. And for all of you who've done it 1,000 times, you have to trust yourself, and I will have a couple responses, and I need to have some prepared, and I will come up with some myself. All right? But like, that's a trust thing. And like, that has to remain no matter what happens in the highs and the lows of any immediate, minute of a debate, right? Because there's a lot of swing, but you have to just trust that when you get up there, you're gonna ask some good questions, and you're gonna say some smart things that you brought into the round, and like your stuff's good. You did good. You put it in, and that trust is important. Go ahead, Jared.
I think like having a perspective as coming from a judge too, that also helps, right? Because when you're a judge, sometimes the decision might be clear, but that doesn't mean that you are embarrassed for the person who lost. You still admire some of the arguments that they made, and could appreciate that. If you can transpose that to yourself, you're like, oh, that's how they see. Even when I don't win, it that's how it appears. It just seems I made some fairly relevant and good arguments that just weren't enough. I think that really helps. Decrease it. Like. I know all these things are like lowering the bar, but that, I don't know, that helps me.
That's not the truth. That's not the truth. It's coming to terms with what you have to do, I think.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it seems like
really
I don't mind it though. I don't mind it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, hey, when you tell yourself, it's like, the bar isn't that high for participation in this thing. Just to participate. Sure, I think, I don't know, that makes me feel kind of good. And it's some people who really don't care about winning, and they just kind of like, if they're okay going in there, and that's a really good attitude to have. Sometimes you surprise yourself.
You know what?
I think the way that you humanize your opponents too can make an impact on that. So I think sometimes it's set up as this like big adversarial, competitive, I've got to crush their arguments type of thing. And I think sometimes it really just diffuses the tension in the room and makes it a more fun round when ahead of the round, get to know their names, like shake their hand, ask where they're from, like just that little bit of human interaction and setting it up as a polite space, just that little bit, like recognizing that they're probably students, probably pissing themselves too. Like they're also nervous about this thing, especially if it's your first time in it. Recognize you're all doing this thing, and like, sure, it's going to be adversarial and there's going to be clash, but it doesn't have to be something nasty and competitive. That can also help diffuse some of the apprehension that comes around it.
I just had a crazy metaphor pop into my head as you were speaking right now, Tim. It's like if you were entered an art contest If me and Tim entered an art contest and he brings a painting and I bring a painting, like, would you draw an angry painting because I'm going against Tim? Like, probably not, right? You draw a sunset or like something, peaceful and beautiful, like that you draw. So like it's the same with debate. Like you just because it's an adversarial competition, like you just bring in your version of debate that you paint, and like the other person's gonna bring theirs, and that's what's beautiful about it. And someone's gonna judge you, unfortunately, and tell someone who wins or loses. But like that's the truth of the art contest, and that wouldn't have changed your vote. Anyways, I wanted to say one more story that Jared, you were hitting on something where it's kind of like you have to kind of just give in to the void a bit. When my final year of competition, I was at Cal State Fullerton. Director of forensics was Erica Thomas, and I was under debate Donnie Peters. And I went to all season. My last year, I lost and lost and lost and lost and lost. And ended up going. I qualified for a national, but I didn't want to go because all I had done is lose. And I was like, at the end, I was like, I didn't want to go. But I went because Donnie's like, look, we paid for you and you have to go. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go. But you know what? I had like given up in so many ways. I hate to say that, but it's the truth. And I said, no matter what we do here, I'm just going to enjoy myself. And like, I won that tournament. And like, it's just, there's something to be said that like, that is a moment that you need to understand where like you have to just kind of say, I'm going to do my thing. I prepared something. I'm going in there and I'm going to do it. And that's that. And like, and don't worry about what anyone else does. Like that helps control your fear of disregarding the other forces in the universe that seem to bear down during a debate round.
Yeah, I think humbling yourself, that sounds like what you're talking about. You just humble yourself. You know what I mean? It's like when you realize that sometimes you have just brilliant arguments and you got the wrong judge. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got the wrong, like you got the wrong side on the wrong topic, and it's like there's a certain chaos to it that allows you to kind of,
you subject yourself to arbitrary criticism.
Yeah.
Period.
It's a language game. You know what I mean? This is not some sort of like sport that you can count up points.
Why is Tim's painting better than mine?
Yeah.
Why?
Right.
There's no answer. There's no good answer to that. Jared, I don't mean to cut you off. Continue, please.
No, I think what might be good is everyone, if everyone got coached to have their own sort of a Chewbacca defense. Do you know that from South Park?
Oh, you mean the Chewbacca defense? Yeah, I read that my second year.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a lie.
There's no perfect
that
argument.
Is not true.
Strong disagree. Chewbacca defense is a perfect argument.
Well, what I'm saying is like something that you can say no matter what. You're like, whatever. Like, no matter what they say, I'm going to talk about climate change. Like, right. If I have nothing to say, if I got nothing to say, I'm saying something about climate change. I think that's better than nothing. I would like if you go in there and the topic is like, decriminalizing drugs and you're like, let me tell you about climate change. And even if the only reason is because you have no idea what arguments to make, I'm like, hey, you know what? Congratulations for formulating coherent sentences. You know what I mean? It's like, I wouldn't be embarrassed for you. I wouldn't be embarrassed. Just do it. Go for it. You'll probably lose, but whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's a very personal activity, and that's I think part of why, like, you lose in a game of basketball, and like it sucks, but like, it's basketball, whatever. Like, you can point to a million different reasons, but like Matt says, when there's a lot more artistry to it, and there's a lot more subjectivity to it, it's a much more personal loss. I mean, accordingly, it's also feels like a more personal win. Like it's your intellect on the line as opposed to just like your practice and physical capability into something. So
it's
I think
like a painting.
People take that really personally, and that can be scary. For sure, right? They can take that personally, but I think that separation can really help diffuse some of the tension as well and make it seem like just an activity that you can go and try the same ways. At some point, you just tried a game of basketball. You can do the same thing, just giving it a shot with debate. And even if it goes terribly, so what? It doesn't have to be a super personal loss. I think taking it too personally is a common pitfall amongst really all debaters, but especially novices.
I think the analogy is the battle of the bands, man.
That would be that works too. Music is the same thing.
It's supposed to be competitive, right? And you're voting on songs, I mean, come on now. Like,
I have a horrible technical issue, but hopefully you can hear me, and I'll just disregard it altogether. So, like, what I was starting to think was like just now, it's an act, okay? It's like basketball, okay? It's like going on a roller coaster, all right? Like, these are things you choose to do. You subject yourself to these activities, all right? And like I've said it here before, I don't think it gets said enough in this debate universe or forensics universe. This is a fun activity. Like, we do this for fun. This is like, that's the driving force for me, at least. Like, the fun. Like, it was fun and exciting, and that's why I did it. That's why I think most people do it. So what's so ironic is you get into this moment, you've been studying, you've been working all this time with a coach, and then you get into the room, and now it's not fun anymore. Like, that's what you have to remember the most. Like, you have to remember this is fun, and this is what I want to do. And like, I don't want to be anywhere but here. So you might as well just do what you learned. Like seeing it from that perspective, like really seeing it from that perspective. I think, we're talking about how to train a mind to not feel the fear that one may or may not feel. I've heard there's people who don't feel scared. Have you heard that before? You've heard people say that, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, they say it, and their behavior doesn't seem to be consistent with that all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like
trash, but they weren't scared.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm not afraid at all. And then they get up there and they're kind of like, man, I really don't know what to say. You know what I mean? It's like they come in with such high hopes and they just, go down in flames. And I don't have the heart to ask them, like, so are you scared now?
Yeah.
Because it looks
like
like
no,
you are.
I'm not scared of just ruining my day.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend for those kids at a very specific level? Because I think those were some of the things that made me feel better about it. Like, what do I do if? And it seems like you get some of those debaters every year that ask like, well, what if they ask a question that I don't know the answer to? What do you tell them to do in that case?
I don't know. Move on.
Yeah. I
Literally.
mean, like,
That's my answer to that.
Answer, for sure.
I would literally say, I don't know. Moving on. And then like let them rant on you for 20 minutes and then be like, they ranted on me saying, I don't know, for 20 minutes. And then just do what you were going to do.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, literally like there's a point where like, that's what I'm talking about. Like when you get to that moment, it's just like, I don't know. I don't know is a bad answer. First disclaimer. This is like the Tiger King episode. This is a disclaimer. I don't know is a bad answer, but in a moment where you are frozen with paralyzed with fear and you don't know what to say, just look at the other person and go, I don't know. And then moving on, like back to my 1AC, whatever you were doing. And like it sounds crazy, but it's better than crumbling with fear and silence for 20 minutes. Like that's worse, right? Can we agree on that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like backpedaling and it's like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. It's like, there's no reason.
Put your
you
partner
don't
on the
have a reason why you
These
have to,
guys don't care about
I
partner communication.
Yeah. Gotta be.
So when kids freeze, right? Or when students just, their fear is that they will just draw a total blank. They'll be in the middle of a speech and draw a blank. What do you recommend in those cases?
Chewbacca defense.
Yeah, Chewbacca defense, or Tim's very big on the flow and like what notes did you prepare in your pre-debate time? And I think one of the keys is you got to be prepared. One thing that we haven't mentioned, I guess, explicitly. Here's another one: be prepared with your arguments. With your arguments specifically, like your flow sheet, your printed out case on a page, like whatever it is, have read it several times if it's full-blown script. If it's a series of bullet points, think about each one. Literally start thinking about, I'm going to spend about 30 seconds here. I'm going to spend about a minute here. Like all these little things are like the things that debaters do. And they're like and yes, things get thrown into the, everything goes according to plan until you get punched in the face. Mike Tyson, right? There are moments where you get knocked off your game a bit, but like just when you have thought of those things once, it makes it easier to say it the second, it's easier to act on them on instinct later.
So I think one of the useful things for coaches to think of in that circumstance, particularly with parliamentary debate, because I've noticed this more and more, is the communication of the prep room. So I know back in the day, debaters prepped themselves in parliamentary debate, and that has just gone away more and more to where almost every tournament that I see now, coaches are the ones that prep the students. And that has its benefits and drawbacks. But I think the biggest drawback is for novice teams that are already nervous about it. They're already not sure where to go. They're on a new campus. They're trying to figure out the whole thing, how to flow, what to organize, what to say. So like, fine. All right, Matt, I'm listening to everything you say. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it. But then they're like, wait, what the hell am I saying? Because my coach just fed me this complicated thing about like why language is like determinate and why there's no real wrong answer. It's like, it's completely abstract. So I think that is on the burden, or that is on the shoulders of coaches to make things accessible and make sure that your students understand what you're saying to them. So have them repeat it back to you, have them teach their partner, right? In the moment, make sure that the things that you are so beautifully, explaining to them, because you've run this argument a million times, some of these students have never heard of some of these things, and make sure that they get it and can repeat it back. And I think that's a real big kind of opportunity lost when coaches, miss that, and a big fear that's created for novices that are kind of new getting into it. Like, what the hell do I do now? I don't even know what I have prepared.
5 practice rounds. You know what I mean? Like, you do 5 rounds, you're ready for any tournament.
Sure.
Like, seriously, just find somebody to do it, and just like low stress. We used to have little like debate clubs late at night, and we'd just have no coaches or nothing. You know what I mean? We would just pick a topic and go, because it's really just going through the motions. Even if you make crappy arguments, there's something about the rhythm to making arguments for 7 minutes that gets you into, a certain amount of verbal usage that you can explain things for longer or shorter than they need to be. You know what I mean? And so just, you got to treat it like an exercise. And the more you do the exercise, the better you're getting. It's not something you can just think your way through. It's like, okay, let me just think about it really hard and then I'll do it right. It's a performance. The only way that you can learn how to do performances is to do it. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, that's kind of how I organize my class. You know what I mean? I got them doing 6 debates. By the time they're done with class, any one of them could be ready for a tournament now.
We're online right now, and we're on an online coronavirus world, and record yourself. If you want to watch a debate, record yourself and see what you think. Tell yourself what you think of yourself. I mean, there's, dealing with a camera is worse than dealing with a human a lot of times. Like it is. Like you have to look at that again and again and again. So just, there are techniques you can do right now, right? And when we hopefully get back to school soon, or like get back to your team, like, yeah, we're gonna do it together and practice. And before you go to the first tournament, and then go to as many tournaments as you can, and then go to the big tournaments. And I think, one thing we could maybe finish with, Jared, what's the difference between going to a open, the first novice tournament of the year, first prelim, or the open final at, NPDA or something like that? Like, talk about the moment, the big moment, the fear in the biggest moments.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I look back, I think that the novice rounds probably scared me more. Like, I mean, I was in the final round at NPTE, and
there you go.
There was like 130 people, and every single one of them had a ballot. And so that was, I don't know, by that time you're like, dude, I've earned my spot here. So whatever. That might be why I lost, though. I'm like, whatever. I got to the final round.
Hey, you should feel some fear. You see, like, it's a big deal. The fear is good.
Yeah,
a little bit good. Like, you should have a little appreciation.
A little too comfortable. You know what I mean?
But Jared's the man, and I love Jared. He's the best. He's number 1 to me. He's the number 1.
Oh man. Well, not to like 80 people in that audience, though.
Yeah, Audrey's the best. Like Jared's right. Audrey. There's a debate.
Yeah, it was like 90%. Kind of like, no, man, you lost that one really bad. I'm like, yeah, I did.
The real loser is the internet at my house tonight. I apologize.
Oh yeah,
today.
Yeah. All right, well, let's put you out your misery. All right, that's been 30 minutes, everybody. Talk about this. Hey, if anyone's got any suggestions for topics, don't be afraid to post them in the comments. All right, that is Matt Shapiro, Esquire. Tim Seavey, assistant to the director, Jared Kubika Miller, debate coach. We will see you all later.